Today's show is brought to you by homebrewsupply.com. Homebrew Supply is your one-stop shop for brew day ingredients, recipes, equipment, and more. Take advantage of everyday low pricing and everyday flat rate shipping only at homebrewsupply.com. Go to homebrewsupply.com right now and use our promo code HHH to get 5% off your order. homebrewsupply.com. Let us help make your brew day better.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Getting gravity readings from a bucket, how long will beer last in a growler, upgrading fermentation gear, and a question about keg infections. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 204. Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on the submit a question link at the top of the page, and now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stubing. Today, I'm joined by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com up there, Mr. James Carlson, and across from me, live and in color, it is Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
We're doing good.
It is
good, sir.
Good. It is a little bit, it wouldn't, again, I say this every episode or every time we do something, it wouldn't be one of our episodes if I didn't bust up technology somehow. We were supposed to be recording this episode a little bit ago, but my mobile setup just gave us some hiccups. We're figuring it out. I have a board that's almost 12 years old, and Todd's, this is the first time you've implored me to shop.
Yeah, but I've mentioned it before. Yeah. Now I'm imploring.
You're right. You have mentioned
but
it.
Actually, it sounds like you need a new cable too, right?
Cables, boards.
Is this episode 204 or 205?
05.
Because you said 204.
When did I say 04?
Just now when you were doing the intro.
Oh, no.
I swear he said 205.
Well, we could play it. Anybody want to bet $5?
Oh, no, I do, but I don't. Hold on. Let me edit the episode first, and then I'll bet you.
Okay, yeah.
We are, I've been here all week. First off, I want to thank our Patreon members who joined me and Todd on Tuesday night. We did a live stream of the election results, and it's Thursday, and we still don't have the election results, so we could have kept the live stream going, Todd.
I know. We'd be really tired by now, though. My fingers would hurt.
Yeah. No kidding, because we were jamming, and I have to say, we got some compliments. The more people were drinking, they said the better we sounded.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure. Although the more we were drinking, I think maybe the worse we sounded. So
I thought I sounded great. About 5 beers in and that whiskey drink, I was like, I'm a rock star.
Yeah, absolutely.
I sound really good right now. My wife had to text me, no, you don't.
Yeah.
She did not. It was a good time. I hope you all are doing well right now and staying sane during this craziness that's going on. I think it's an applicable or an appropriate time to quote Charlie Papazian right now and just relax. Don't worry. Have a homebrew.
That's right.
Or panic, freak out, but still have a homebrew. I mean, it's whatever you want to do, however you want to react to what is going on. But even with all the craziness, madness, we still have a great fun-filled episode ready for y'all. I have a little bit of small talk, guys, before we get into the questions. The first one is the November recipes have been announced. We have our recipe kits announced on patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. One is, I think I'm pronouncing this right. Is it Pattersbeer? Pattersbeer, right? The Belgian Inkel? Yeah, both of y'all. Thanks. You're throwing me.
I'm like, I've never heard that before.
I think it's Pattersbeer. I think that's how you pronounce it. And then the other one is a Schwarzbier. I know how to pronounce that. Who hasn't seen Spaceballs?
Schwarz.
Yeah, you're right. It's Schwarz. But yeah, I see your Schwarz is as big as mine. Most of our audience is of age. They would probably have seen that movie. But I'm very excited about these. I think my dad and we kind of discussed, we'll brew the Belgian Inkel, the Pattersbeer. And when's the last time y'all brewed a Schwarzbier? I mean, it's been a long time since you've had it on tap.
It seems like it was in the last year, maybe.
Yeah. It was when we were doing the Spike video as well. That same day we did a Schwarzbier.
That was like 18 months ago, wasn't it?
Probably. I thought we'd done one since then, but maybe not.
Oh, maybe we did. I don't know. We could bet $5 if you think we did it within the last 12 months, Todd.
Oh, no, I'm good.
I've been trying to trap him lately, James, with some bets, and unfortunately, it is not working out.
Well, he's trapped me several times, then he lost.
That is, yeah. Those are the worst. Also, I just realized, you and I, Todd, are wearing shirts. This sweatshirt went on sale in our Teespring store. If you go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on store and merch up in the menu, look at this sweatshirt. I mean, you've seen it before. You've seen this before, but it's our Der Beste Podcast aller Zeiten. It's our best seller as well, not just our best podcast ever. And also, we put a poll out to our Patreon members. Todd commissioned a caricature of us, and we're going to probably use it on the cover art. We'd love your feedback. Just published it today. The only person who looks good on that, though, is James.
Yeah. Handsome James.
The guy, he must listen to the show because I know. We just found him on Upwork, and all of a sudden we send him our pictures, and he makes James look. It's not even a caricature. Like, it's not goofy. Like, you look normal. Todd, you look jolly. I'll just say that.
I look fat and old, and we all know I'm not fat and old.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the way he made my eyebrows, he made me look too realistic too. It just turns out I'm ugly. So I looked at the cartoon. I'm like, that looks really off. And you're like, spot on, man.
Yeah.
Looked in the mirror. But if you don't, a lot of stuff going on at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. We've had a lot of new members join. We appreciate every single one, y'all. I also, people who've already put in their pits for Patter's beer or Schwartz beer, the Imperial shipment is coming next week. So like a week from today, then your recipes will go out that Monday. I believe that's the 14th or 15th of November is when the earliest they'll start shipping out. So just keeping y'all in the loop. And if you don't get your tracking number emailed to you, please message me through Patreon, and I'll get you a tracking number as soon as possible or figure out what's going on. But yes.
Well, also, while we're talking about the caricature, if any of our listeners out there are artists and they want to try one, we would definitely take more submissions. And, I'm the final judge. And if I didn't look quite as old and fat and the other two looked worse, that might have a bearing on it. So
I was going to say, you're just so butthurt at what you look like. I like it. James.
No, I'm kidding. I really do like it.
James, what is your honest opinion on the drawing?
I think it looks really good. I think that the guy is very talented.
I thought so too. I thought it came out great.
Yeah. I think he captured the essence of all three of us. So
yeah, it's funny too. It's because James, the first time you saw it, you're like, oh, he gave me a cigar. I told the guy, the only direction I gave him was like, James is taller than us. And I said, and if you included beer and cigars, it would be appropriate. And so me and Todd in it are holding cigars, and James, you're just smoking away. I've never seen you that intense on this.
Toking
away. That's what you're known for. Actually, we get you to smoke every full moon. Last time let's see. I think you smoked a cigar with us. On our live.
I love cigars.
Yeah.
In moderation.
He had that worried look on his face because you talked about toke, and then you're like, we get you to smoke with us every once in a while. He's like, what are you talking about, dude?
No,
Emily could be watching this.
Yeah, my mother's watching this. No, she's not.
I looked it up, guys, and actually, we brewed that Schwartz beer August of 2019.
So not 18 months, but over a year. I would have won the bet.
But you didn't bet.
No, but that's how I usually win.
Right.
Is the hypothetical bets when I'm in the shower talking to the shampoo bottles. Like, I'm going to say this to Mr. Burns one day. He'll see. I'll be right. I don't have a whole. Oh, I knew what I wanted. The alt beer. We're kegging it today.
We're gonna keg both of them today. I'm not sure.
Sweet.
Yeah,
yes. I wondered about that.
I'm not sure if
I brought it up. Yeah.
Alt beer is still not totally clarified. I think it needs to go into kegs and get even colder, and then we might have a cloudy beer or two. But I think it's pretty much clear. It needs to go down to 30 some degrees. Yeah.
Just filtered it out.
You should have grabbed this filter kit. That would have helped a lot.
It's pretty clear. I mean, I think part of it's just when you're trying to pull it out of that fermenter, you always get a little yeast mixed in there when you start swirling it around. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That is not a beer we're taking with us though to opening weekend celebration.
We're taking a Kolsch, and we already have one there, and that kegerator only has, I was going to say it only holds 2 kegs. It would actually hold about 200 kegs, but we only have 2 faucets on it.
Because he has
it's
an entire
huge walk-in cooler.
He has a walk-in cooler.
Oh, I remember that you talking about that. Yeah.
Is he using V10 faucets on his kegerator?
He is, yes.
Oh, booyah. So I wanted to be drinking alt beer all weekend, and I wanted to be drinking the melt stout all weekend, but I'll settle for a Kolsch. That'll be okay.
Yeah, Kolsch and the other beer,
the Yingling
clone.
It did end up good. I don't mind Yingling. It's not my favorite, but your clone is better than.
Oh yeah, it's really good. It's really good. I love that beer. We finally ran out of it here, but I love that beer.
Yeah, it turned
We're down to 3 beers here,
and
man.
Why? This is totally off topic, but kind of because it's about Yingling. Why don't they distribute here? Aren't they one of the country's oldest breweries?
They just they got a new distribution agreement with maybe I could be wrong. I think it might be Coors Molson, but I think they are going to start distributing.
Okay,
in more areas.
I had no idea because I have a buddy. He goes to Florida like every year, and he'll bring back. It's one of his favorite beers, and like their traditional just Yingling lager, and he'll bring back a case or 2. And we were enjoying one, and I was like, it made me. And this was a month or 2 ago, and it made me think, why can't we get it here? Not that I'm not itching to buy it frequently, but it would have been good for the podcast to do a comparison side by side for recipe recap.
Absolutely.
But if they're distributing soon, that'll be good. But anyway, so yes, with all that, I'm trying to think if we have any other small talk. This episode, I didn't throw it together last minute at all. I gave you all the questions earlier in the week, but I forgot to update the small talk part. And so it still says October recipe kit, last call, and talking about our live stream on November 3rd. So, last call. You can't get last month's recipe anymore. And we had a good time on the live stream. So I guess that means, Todd, like you always tell me, let's just get to the questions.
Yeah.
So I've got 4 questions for us. Our first one came from our buddy Marcus P, who used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. And he wrote, "Hello, gents. Your podcast is the best. I love Kolsch, and sours suck." Smart guy,
oh my
Mark.
Gosh.
Smart guy,
wow.
Mark. I wanted to know how you would recommend I take gravity readings of my beer if I'm using a plain old bucket to ferment in. Can I remove the airlock and stick my siphon down into the beer after sanitizing everything, of course? This seems like it's a great way to ruin my beer, though, but I don't really know of any other way I can get a reading on my beer. I do not have a budget for upgrading my fermentation equipment yet, so that is not an option for me. Marcus. It's a great question because there's, I think, 2 schools of thought, where one is the numbers, like, relax, don't worry, just enjoy it. If if it's finished out, it's going to taste good. Don't worry about the numbers you got. But also in the same breath, you need to know if it finished out before you transfer it to secondary or start kegging it or bottling it. So, like, Todd, I'll throw it to you first. What advice do you have to Marcus if he's using buckets?
First on your comments, I would say a lot of people want to know what it is, of course, because they want to know where they are and what you're trying to hit, if you need to leave it in longer. It's not a problem at all. Most people, or a lot of people, use a thief, which is similar. It looks very similar to a siphon tube, but it actually has just a little thing on the bottom, just like the wand you use for bottling, where you push it down in there. It pushes I don't know what you would call that, a stem in, and it's a check valve, yeah, and it lets the beer come in, and then when you pull it back up, it closes and you can pull it out. As long as but you could also use your siphon, I guess, as well, if it would get beer in there. I'm not sure how you would get beer in there. I mean, you can stick basically anything in there if it's sanitized. I mean,
anything. You
could take a hose and siphon some out with a hose. It's just got to be sanitized. It's fine. Some people do worry about getting oxygen in there, but when you just pull the lid off and a little bit, and you put something in there and you take it out, and you're closing it back up, you're not putting a lot. You're not putting a lot of oxygen on it's just on the very top, and so that shouldn't be a problem either.
And James, with you, like, would you say taking off the whole bucket lid or just removing the bung out? Like, how would, if he's dedicated to sticking to buckets and he's not going to change it, like, what's the best way? Like, because a wine thief, like, are we talking it's thin enough to stick in where the
pull
bung?
the whole lid off. Okay. I mean, I do it on every batch. I've done it always for I mean, I've always done that.
And you've never oxidized a beer?
No.
James, I mean, with like in the days you were using because you started with buckets, or did you start with that big old Bertha fermenter when you started brewing?
Oh no, I was using glass carboys. So I would use a thief because it fits through the opening. But what I would say, I've got a suggestion he can do is get a hole saw and buy one of the bigger bungs, and then open up that hole in your bucket to where you can remove that, and your thief will go right down in the center of it, and then you don't have to take the lid off.
That's what I would. So my dad and I use the Genesis, and we don't. And even though it is a wide mouth screw top, the bung is big enough to take out to where we have to transfer. We can just put the whole auto siphon down right there and sanitize.
And if an auto siphon will fit through the hole, so will a thief.
Yeah. So I obviously I don't want to discourage people at the beginning when I said, oh, not, numbers aren't always important. But Todd, would you say, because sometimes my dad and I aren't taking numbers before we transfer to secondary or whatever, are you always checking to see the status of your primary fermentation before?
Yes.
Okay. So we just been getting lucky that we also, though, we wait like 7 to 9 days. We're pretty confident our fermentation's done. That's why I haven't been a stickler on like, are we at 1010 or 10 or whatever our number ends up needing to be. But you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all take numbers frequently because you want, if it's done, to get the process rolling for whatever's next. Which
there could be an argument.
Cold crashing, yeah.
It's a terrible argument for Todd, but there would be an argument for a lot of people that you don't want it to get too low. I mean, if you don't want a real dry beer, you don't want it to fall, maybe in the style of beer, if you look at the recipe, it says you want to go to 1.012. Well, if you're trying to stay in that range and it's at 1.0, 1.2, you don't want it to drop down to 10 or 0.08 or 0.08 or whatever, because you don't want it to get that dry,
Yeah. And I was thinking, I know I don't know what they cost. And so if he's not wanting to, if he doesn't have the budget for upgrading his fermentation equipment, understood. I'm not going to say, well, what you should do is get a CF5 from Spike and then you can test right off of they have little valves or whatever. But what do y'all think about, none of us use them yet, so this is just a total hypothetical question. Things like the tilt hydrometer or the eye spindle and all those. That would also, because you throw that in the bucket and then you're going to know just off the number, it's going to transmit to your phone like, hey, it's ready. Yeah. You can start transferring right now or cold crashing or whatever. Do you know what those cost by chance, anybody? Because
I think they were $200 or $300, right? They're fairly expensive.
That's still cheaper than.
I think they've gone down. The tilt isn't quite that high anymore.
Yeah. Well, I only say that because that would be cheaper than getting a conical. That would be cheaper. It's not as cheap as just getting.
They're cool. So they're $139.
That's not that bad.
Like that's MAP on that because everybody's at that price point. Yeah. So, $139. I think it's definitely worth it because it's got an app for your phone. You can always monitor it without wasting beer in a hydrometer.
And and they're cool. It's technology. I like gadgets. I think I haven't gotten one yet because we haven't had a need for them, but I want one just I see our friend George. I don't know if he's using Tilt or if he's using iSpindle or one of those, but Gorgeous George, you've seen him. He tags us every night. His setup is so sweet. He has them, I think, in every keg, and he has a digital display, right, telling him all the data on each batch of beer that he has, and then
who doesn't love that?
That's what I mean. Totally, Todd. That should be your next thing to get, dude. We just have to.
I mean, but when I ferment, I either do it in the fermenter over there, or I do it. And I almost always have 2 sets going. I'd have to buy 4 of them. I'm too cheap to do that.
That is true. You are very frugal.
That'd be almost 1,000. No, my math's really bad.
That'd
be almost 500. It would be 4. That'd be more than 500.
It'd be a little over $5. So yeah. That's half.
I think it would be interesting to see just how vigorous the fermentation is. You can see where you're at high krausen and how long it takes to get from high krausen to final gravity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
Todd, the podcast.
Why don't we carry them?
I don't know. Do they? I'm assuming that they probably sell through retailers. I have no idea. They might just Tilt. Remember, we met those guys in Portland at the hotel lobby. Do y'all remember that? They were drinking beer. There was the first night we got there. We small talked. It was 3 young guys, and by young I mean like my age, so youngish. We should have them on the show. That's what we should do. We should have them on the show, and the podcast can buy one, and we'll test it and see.
There you go.
Yeah. Or when I say the podcast will buy one, I'm gonna beg them like, can I please product test one? And you know how Todd, you know how I whine.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But I'm still employed. I still get what I want sometimes. It works. Ask my wife. So yeah, Marcus, we understand that the need or the desire to not want to spend money on upgrading equipment, especially if you're on a tight budget or if that money could go elsewhere. But like these guys said, get a Wine Thief is the product name, right? Or just Thief?
Beer or Wine Thief.
Beer or Wine Thief. Those are very affordable.
They're like $10. I'm just saying off the top of my head, maybe 11.
They're under. I know they're under 20, and you can get them shipped quick, and you'll be in business of getting readings, and that should minimize your fear of oxidation. But Todd, you made it seem like it's going to be kind of difficult to oxidize it anyway, because you did that in buckets for a while.
I always did. I just did it on the I mean, every beer you've ever drank of mine, I've done that with. So.
Right. That's not, you mean every beer that I've drank that you didn't have in the conical.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I didn't realize you were using buckets still a whole lot.
A lot. Yeah. There's 3 were in
You're
buckets.
Just brewing so much, man. What is the future for Burns Barn Brewery? You're not going to have a stack of conicals?
Well, I mean, look, I brew all the time, and we're down to 3 beers, and we have a 6 beer system and another.
Because you have a drinking problem. But what?
I have a bunch of friends that have terrible drinking problems, and employees, I might add.
Anyway, next question. No, we need to get you more conicals. You have space for them. We'll put 2 right there. You have tons of space.
Well,
James, doesn't he need more conicals?
Oh, of course. Put a chiller and a conical.
See,
a chiller with each one.
Having one conical and then buckets works good, because what I do is I almost always put my lagers in the conical.
Right.
And then I put my ales in the buckets, and I put them in glass carboys, and then I've got that huge fridge right behind you that holds 3 glass carboys. Not many people have a fridge that holds 3 glass carboys and a bunch of beer on top. And it works pretty good, but yeah, we'll have to talk about it. I think I need if I was going to do that, I'd need a glycol system that would feed both at the same time.
And hear me out.
Yeah.
Remember, there is a vendor that we are working with on potentially doing a project to do like a walk-in. Mm-hmm. What if we just did a cold storage room for you with that product?
Yeah, I just don't have much more room around here.
You have this whole compound. Let's build a second story.
Let's build a second story. I'm in. Okay.
That'll be the summer project. But anyways,
I'm glad you're willing to help finance that. Thank you.
Anyway, so Marcus, thank you so much for submitting your question. This is a great time to remind you all that if and when we take your question on a future episode, we do give you a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com, courtesy of Mr. Burns across from me. So Todd, thank you so much for your generosity. Moving on to question number 2, came from our friend Victor, who also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Victor wrote, "Hey there, I am new to your YouTube, but I enjoy your videos and have learned a lot. I don't know if you've talked about this before, but I want to start sharing my brews with friends and family, and I came across some pretty cheap growlers if I buy them in bulk. I'm thinking about gifting growlers at Christmas, but how long will the beer stay good in a growler? I keg my beer and have never bottled, but I could bottle a batch if you think bottles will be better than growlers. I hope you can help. Salud, Victor." It is a good time to share your beer right now. It's getting to that season. I think my dad wants to.
That's a great idea, by the way.
It is. And he's right, though, especially now. I think with the invent of Alibaba and AliExpress, like you can just go on the internet and be like, oh my God, I can get 50 growlers for $20 or for $10 a piece. Or you know what I mean? Like you find deals and then you look at shipping and sometimes like, never mind. But, I'm going to kick it to you, Todd, because you're the carbonation man. My understanding is if it's not a carbonation controlled growler, you've got maybe 2 days before you notice it goes flat. What is the kind of rule of thumb on that?
Well, I mean, most people fill growlers with, just by opening the top and basically pouring the beer in. So you could end up having some issues with it oxygenating, and you could lose carbonation when you do that. Yeah, 2 days is kind of a day or 2, I would say, is the rule of thumb. Now, if you were very careful and you found a way to fill it more in a closed environment, and it's sealed very well. I don't see why it wouldn't last longer. But I mean, the only way I've ever used a growler is like being in a brew pub and they fill up a growler full of beer, or I fill up a growler full of beer and I take it over to my buddies. I just told you about my buddies. So the growler of beer doesn't need to last 2 days. It lasts about 30 minutes after I get there. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've never, what I use a growler for is to take beer somewhere and drink it immediately. So right. I can't really, of course, if you could put beer in it, keep oxygen out, and keep the carbonation level up, then it should last longer because it's just a vessel.
James, you share beer all the time, but you share it by the keg load. And you have that nice brewer's friend growler. What are your thoughts on growlers and bottles for sharing?
Well, I mean, if you could figure out a way of making a counter pressure bottle filler work with the mouth of a growler, then it wouldn't be any different than a regular beer bottle. But the problem is most of the mouths are so big on a growler that you would almost have to drill your own bong to make it work. So you could maintain carbonation and then fill it without oxidizing the beer as it's going in. If you were able to do that, you could store it just like a bottle of beer, but it's inherently difficult to do that with such a big mouth. And the growler sizes are so big that, we had some of that Belgian ale, and there was just a little bit left in the keg, and I was wanting to put another keg in, so I filled up the Fredericksburg growler that we got when we went through the brewery. And oddly enough, it has been in the fridge. I opened it Saturday because I was out of gas. My gas ran out on my system, so I wasn't able to get any beer out. And I thought, well, I had that in there. It was completely full. I sanitized it, filled it up, sealed it off, and it had full carbonation. I am not lying. I couldn't believe it. It'd been in the fridge for 4 months.
Dude, that's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's funny that this question popped up because I would have said that it would have been flat, nasty, oxidized, but it tasted just like it did in the keg.
It was good timing for the question then, because I was convinced. I was
surprised that it poured ahead and everything, and I literally. But I think the key to that is I run off quite a bit of beer to get it completely almost as full as I could. I left about a half an inch from the lid, closed it off, and just stuck it in the fridge. I kept it cold from fill to fridge and just sealed it off. And it made the gas sound when I opened it, just like a bottle of beer, and I poured it.
That's cool.
And it had the carbonation maybe was a little less than normal, but it certainly was definitely drinkable.
Yeah. A good point there, James, too, is if you fill a growler so full that it's foaming over and you put the lid on and screw the lid down real quick, and you got, even they usually have a little thing you can open on them.
Right.
And you got foam coming out of that. You're probably not going to get any oxygen if you got foam coming out, right?
Right. Yeah, and I had made quite a bit of mess, and I intended to, because I wanted to try to leave the carbonation level as much as what it was in the keg. And also I didn't want to oxidize the beer, and it worked.
If it was anyone else telling me, dude, I don't know if I'd believe him. But you're honest, you're honest, handsome James. So I have that is incredible, because like I had an IPA once in my fridge, but I didn't fill it very well, what you're talking about. And it was a week later, and when I opened it, I was like, son of a gun, I waited too long. It was super flat. Yeah. And you know how beer, I like when we're tasting our beer before we transfer it or whatever, and it's not carbonated, you're like, oh, I look forward to how this is going to be. It's not flat. There's a difference between uncarbonated beer and flat beer. And I don't know if it's what carbonic acid does when it goes away, when it's already in there, if that's why it's such a different taste than just the uncarbonated version of that beer. But it's a real letdown when you're trying to enjoy a beer and then you get hit with the flatness. It's very frustrating. But I was going to say too, because he talks about how he's always kegged and he's never bottled. They don't pay us yet, trying to get their money. Blickman's beer gun is a phenomenal tool that we've all used, and it makes bottling from the keg super easy. If he were to do that and share his beer that way, or like you said, use the beer gun to fill up your growler and keep that not oxygen, keep that carbonation levels good. And they're easy. I mean, it's so easy to use. Like, what is the retail value on them? Like $100, give or take. I think it's like $99. That's the best.
Like
that's one of the best $99 you can spend if this was your goal. If you're kegging already and you want to share your beer, I think the Blitzman beer gun is like my first holiday pick. Or any, like James said, any counter pressure bottle filler. But even we have a DIY kit from Keg Connection on counter pressure bottle. That's more affordable than the Blitzman.
It's really not DIY. I mean, it's done.
Oh, is it all done?
It's all put together.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Oh, my bad. Well, even then, look, not dogging Keg Connection. They're a good company. The boss is sketchy. That Blitzman beer gun is still my first choice. Like that product is made bottling, and again, it's not even bottling. At that point, it's just filling up bottles. It's not my issue with bottling was like when we did the video on bottling and you had to do the priming sugar.
I still have some of that beer in the fridge, and it is so overcarbonated. We'll have one tonight. Yeah. You literally have to pour a beer and set it aside and have another beer and then go have that beer.
Well, I know. Remember when we had it was a contractor who's a buddy of both of y'all's, and I forget his name. It's not Trent. Or it's something like that. He came over.
That's Trent.
Okay,
yeah,
Trent. Yeah. He has very nice things to say about you, James. And
which is unusual.
Which, we're not used to that. It was shocking. No, he came over, dude, and Todd was, we were drinking beer from there, and Todd was like, "Oh, you know what? You like IPAs? I have this bottle of IPA."
That's a pale ale, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, he said he liked grapefruit. Isn't that how?
Okay, yeah.
I think that's how it came up.
Yeah.
And so Todd was like, "Okay, well, let me share this." And Todd starts pouring it. And like,
it's got a lot of carbonation.
It was so carbonated.
But it tastes great.
Yeah. Well, and
once you let
it
it cool
does,
down a little bit.
And remember though, we just let it sit on the side for like 20 minutes, and then it was like, "Okay, let's drink this now." But it did. I took some of your bottles to the beach. Had a real good time with them. Because that pale ale, what is it too? It's like 7%.
Yeah, it is high.
It was
pretty
pretty
high. Yeah.
It made for beach time evenings fun. But anyway, Victor, I think that it's nice that you're going to be sharing your beer. In my opinion, the bottles I think are a cool gift because you can make like a little 6-pack or whatever. But if you found the growlers, that's cool too. Fill them up. Counter pressure filling is what's key though, right, guys?
Well, and I think it's real important that you want to make sure that it's working correctly. So what I would do is I would take a growler, fill it up full of your beer, send it to Homebrew Happy Hour, and we'll see. We'll test it for you.
Yeah. Get a counter.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Todd, you have one. Yeah. And you're real.
That's why he's the boss.
You're a real charitable man too. Doing that for the people. People.
My pleasure.
So anyways, Victor, thank you so much for submitting your question. Moving on to the third question of this week's show. It came from Beth, and she also used the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com. Beth wrote in, Joshua, James, and Todd. Homebrew Happy Hour has been a superb resource, and I'm thankful for what you're doing. I do have a question for you. I'm wanting to have more control over my fermentation temperatures, and I cannot decide between configuring a fridge or freezer into a fermentation chamber, or if I should get the kind of conical and glycol setup that you have spoken about before. While I do have the budget and space for both types of fermentation solutions, I would like to get the best bang for my buck, in air quotes. Can you help steer me in the right direction and discuss the pros and cons? Beth, that is also when people are figuring out how they're doing their setups, the two things that come to mind are always space and budget. So she knocked out the hardest question for me, or hardest factor of that question, because now she's basically given us a blank check to tell her, like, yeah, go to Keg Connection, go to this section and fill up your cart with this. Todd, you and James have experience with both setups. What has, I'll ask you first, Todd, what has made fermentation easier, and what would you say you've learned by using both?
Both systems, I think, work really well. They both work the same in that in the end, you fermented your beer and you have good beer as long as you follow the procedures. Obviously, the big fermenter is nice, particularly if you do larger batches, because, with me, if I'm doing a 15-gallon batch, that means I have to mess with 3 buckets. I have to fill three different times. I have to transfer into glass carboys. I mean, it's a lot of work, whereas with the fermenter, the only work really is cleaning it when you're done. And I'd just pull it outside, fill it full of hot water and brew clean and let it soak for an hour and open it up and clean it. So it's much faster, much easier. You said, what's the best bang for my buck? To me, that's somewhat of a loaded question. doing a glycol system in a fermenter is expensive. You know, if you have glass carboys in a fridge and you're buying a used fridge somewhere, I mean, that could be a fourth as much money or half as much money. So to me, it's worth the extra money to have the big fermenter and have the glycol system, because I brew a lot and I enjoy it. It's eye candy when people come over and you can pour a beer out of your fermenter and let them try it right, before it's even done. And you can check it every 3 days to see where the gravity is, because all you have to do is open up the little sample valve and you never touch anything, or there's no way you're going to get oxygen in there. It really comes down to, if you've got the money and you're willing to spend the money and get the nice fermenter. If you're a little more frugal than that, the other one's still going to work. They both do the same thing in the end. Just kind of like, driving a Kia it's going to get you from here to there, and it's probably going to be fine. But some people would prefer to drive a Maserati, huh?
You know what? And I asked you first, James, how rude of me, because not only do you have experience with both as well, you also have experience with bathtubs and ice packs and wrapping things around. I mean, you have fermented your beer every way a person can ferment. You even used
fermentation on a budget.
Yeah, you've expanded the whole spectrum. So what would you say to Beth in regards to money is of no concern, or not necessarily drastic parts, spare no expense, but if
sure, I would tell her, just put some money aside and just get the conical and the chiller, because eventually you're going to head that direction anyway. You can transfer into a keg effortlessly.
Yeah.
You can sample, if you get the spike conicals, you can turn that into a bright tank. You can dump trub, fairly simple. You can reclaim yeast with a conical a lot easier than you can with anything else. There's so many advantages. You're not going to break your back lifting it into a keezer, risking breaking. If you use glass carboys, eventually something's going to slip and you could risk breaking that. I would just say, for the difference, just save your money and get a chiller and get a spike conical. You can ferment, you can carbonate in that thing. It comes with a valve, with a pressure relief valve. You can hook gas up to it when it's done. You can cold crush. You can lager. There's no comparison.
Yeah,
I'm inclined to believe him, and that's why I've been telling my dad that I need to change our setup.
It upped our beer game when Todd was good enough to get us the kind of equipment we have to brew with. It made a huge difference.
James, you mentioned the kegging, and I didn't mention that. You almost feel like you're cheating when you keg with it.
Really?
It's so
there's no
easy.
Work involved.
You just click the hose on. We'll do it. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
After the podcast, we're going to transfer all these beers. So we're going to do 2 kegs in that. I'm pointing over there like everybody can see it. And then we're going to do 3 kegs from over there, and then you see what you think's easier.
Yeah. No, yeah. I believe you. I was just laughing too, because I'm looking at your camera and
another thing, I talk about using a 10-inch filter, a 1 micron filter. When I move into a keg, I just put that in line. We're moving with gas. So there's no pump involved, no oxidation to worry about. I just wait till the filter completely fills up and gets purged. I turn it upside down, make sure there's no air in it, and then run just about a pint out of it, and then connect it to the keg and just let it go.
So let's say
valuing, get a conical with a chiller.
Valuing your time to consider that. What y'all would say
in your back.
The conical has paid for itself. The glycol and conical setup, James, you'd argue has definitely paid.
Oh heck yeah, yeah. There's no interaction with the beer.
You're like my Ron Swanson, man. When you endorse something, I'm on board for it. I'm like, yes, James supported it.
Well, we both have. Todd's got one in his barn, and he's able to provide us with one here at work, and it's amazing. It's that big a deal that I would just save up and wait and get something.
Yeah, or in Beth's case, right? I mean, she's got deep pockets. It sounds like. Maybe. What's your marital status there, Beth?
Yeah, handsome James is still in the market. Especially he's been looking for a girl with a 15-gallon conical fermenter, right, James?
Nothing like a woman with a 15-gallon conical in a chiller, man.
I'm gonna leave my wife for a woman with the. I married a teacher. I'd rather have a brewer. Equally bad pay, but at least you're drunk. Right. But anyways, yes, Beth. Especially if you have the space or whatever. We obviously Blickman has a great line. We wholeheartedly support Spike. Their conicals we have hands-on experience with, and they've always been good to us.
Yeah, we're waiting for Blickman's new conical. We really want to try it, and I actually talked to John, about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and he mentioned that it's really close. In fact, we're gonna have to buy one because we got to try it, right? So maybe that's my other fermenter that's in here, right?
Yeah.
I like the way you think.
Well, I do too.
Absolutely.
How about the tens of dollars we have in the Homebrew Happy Hour bank account?
Yeah, there you go.
you can use that to buy one. We'll we
could almost pay with the shipping with that. Oh, the shipping's free. Thank goodness.
So with that guy's covered. We did talk about though having not Tom. Well, Tom would be great to have on the show too.
He would.
Tom would be a blast, but
he doesn't actually brew, but he's a fun guy.
And I don't think he technically works for him.
He doesn't. No.
But we talked about having Doug and John back on the show. Yeah. We're just waiting for that fermenter to come out because we want to help them promote that too, because the guys at Blickman, like I said, their products are incredible and they speak for themselves. But as a company, they're great. And we love hanging out with them. And I can say the same thing about Spike too. Ryan over at Spike is so good to us. And it was great having him on the show. I say having him on the show. That was like a year ago now. At a time flies.
He's a good resource too when we have issues with that kind of equipment.
And he just bought, he got his pop into brewing.
He did. Yeah.
And you helped set him up with that.
Yep.
That's right. Yep. We that was really cool. He reached out and to Todd was like, I think my dad wants to start brewing.
Or maybe, his dad brews, but he the last thing he did is he helped him get set up for draft beer.
That's what it was too.
Yeah.
You did both, didn't you? You helped him.
During the very beginning of COVID, he called me. He's like, my dad really wants to brew a batch of beer, and he's having a hard time getting beer. The shops are closed down. I sent him a recipe.
That's what it was. Yeah. You look at you, man, Mr. Benevolent. Here I am. I was arguing all day. You're a narcissist. I am so sorry.
No problem. We had this argument. We looked it up and decided that we were both narcissists. So,
we decided. Yeah.
I think everybody has a little bit of narcissism in them.
Thank you, James. Thank you. That was my whole premise. And Todd was like, it's a clinical thing apparently. So I said, let's go take the test. Let's go do it. We'll do it.
No, I think, with places like Reddit and Cura and it's like the flavor of the month because I've never seen it brought up some more in the last 2 months than I have here lately.
Oh, really? But
you know what I mean? It's people get onto this one topic and then it spreads like wildfire and it's on everything.
Oh, my friend, I've been a narcissist for a long time. It's been years of me talking about myself. But Beth, thank you so much for submitting that question. Guys, we have one more for this week's episode. It came from our buddy Charles D, who used the submission form as well at homebrewhappyhour.com. Charles wrote, fellas, your show is the best part of my commute, and I am loving the extended time now. Great stuff. I have a question about infections in my keg. I've had 2 batches recently turn on me while in the keg, and both seem to have turned bad after a couple of weeks. The only known common denominator that I can think of is that these batches were both kegged in the same corny keg. I only have 2 kegs as it is, but is it likely that I might have something wrong with that keg? If so, does this mean I have to toss the keg, or can I get this fixed without having to replace it? I don't want to sound cheap like Josh, that's rude, but I also don't want to spend more money if I don't have to. LOL, Charles. And he wrote LOL. I didn't just say LOL. I know I have a problem sometimes with saying LOL, but what's wrong with sounding cheap like Josh? I mean, I started being cheap like Todd, if you want to know the OG of who.
I think James is cheap. I don't know. Gosh, everybody thinks
or cheap like your pop.
He's very frugal, very frugal.
But James, I want to throw it to you first because you've had it was a fermenter that was busted. I've never heard of a keg causing infections. Is that possible?
Oh yeah, sure. Anytime you have bacteria, it can hide in the smallest, tiniest little cracks and scratches and that kind of stuff. I think the issue we had was with a stainless steel conical, and it had the cone section at the bottom was actually welded on, and there was some openings where the welds were. So there was imperfect weld. Normally on stainless steel, especially in fermenters, if they do have to weld, they're going to weld enough material above it to where they can sand it and polish it down so bacteria don't have a place to hide. In this particular one, it did. And I had it turned sour pretty quick. And we had one batch that went bad, did another batch. It did the same thing. Anybody knows it's had lacto infection. You get these big white bubbles. And that's what that was. And after looking at it a little closer, we found where some of the welds were, you could see it was porous. So I haven't used that. I guess it is possible. You could probably grind I would look at the inside, take it completely apart and just sanitize the crap, scrub it real good, use some sanitizer, replace the O-rings, scrub everything by hand, and then look inside to see if there's any deep scratches or anything like that might promote bacteria infection or somewhere for the bacteria to hide. And, I think probably just a really deep cleaning ought to fix that.
Yeah, Todd, I was going to say my best guess would be, and James nailed it in regards to like taking it apart and sanitize everything, because it could be a part like on the post even that that sanitizer maybe just missed or it didn't cover it all the way where the bacteria is hiding. Because I'm assuming he's used this keg more than the 2 batches, right, that got ruined.
I mean, we have no idea.
But I'm just giving him that benefit because I think he would have mentioned like these are the first 2 times, because that changes the context. Because if he said this is the first time I've ever used this keg, I would say, oh crap, sounds like there's a scratch in that keg and it's harboring something. But if you've used that keg a while, then it's not, because how does a keg get scratched on the inside?
I've had kegs that had welds.
That came that way though.
That had, where there'd actually been a hole in it and somebody had re-welded it, where they had scratches, where they had rough spots on the bottom. Yeah. All kinds of stuff. And it just never happened. I guess it has to be introduced at some point. And if it is introduced, then maybe it could happen. I don't know. Maybe if you could put some really concentrated sanitizer in it to kill what's ever in there. But usually when you're putting beer in the keg, it's already got alcohol in it. So it's not as susceptible as when you're fermenting a beer. So it could certainly happen. I say that. I'm sure it could. It just never happened to me.
We had it happen at HomebrewCon.
So you think that happened in the keg?
I do.
Yeah.
See, I would always assume
it came out of the conical, and I ended up kegging 3 kegs. We had one here. Yep. We had one that we distributed that day. The opening day, that was fine, and then when we tapped that other one, it was bad.
So you think that one happened in the keg? I never thought about that.
Yeah, it would have had to. Right. Because, like I said, we shipped 2 kegs. One keg was fine. They both came out of the same conical. Mm-hmm. And that first lemon drop pills tasted great.
It did.
The second keg, which I kegged those on the same day, it was definitely infected.
Right. And in the keg,
I had to pour that whole 5-gallon out.
When the one that you kept at home was good too when you got back, wasn't it? Because I remember yeah.
Actually, I had already, if you remember, I think we shipped that out. Yeah, I had an extra keg. I think it was here, or I took it home.
I think you took it home, because
took it home, but it was fine.
So
it
greedy.
Fine.
I thought I remember because I think you called when we got back, and that's the first thing you said was, "Mine's fine," like because you were worried, like, "Oh crap, what if that other keg is going to be bad as well?" And we just lucked out that the first batch went by so fast that it didn't have time to manifest. But when you got home, you're like, "Oh, thank God! Oh, this beer's still good." That was the priority. Like I think your dogs wanted to see you, your family. No. Okay, it's still good, guys. Still tastes good. I guess I've lucked out too. In time, my dad and I rotate between a ton of different kegs, right? And we have not had that issue. I mean, I've messed up beer before, don't get me wrong, but I can't blame the keg. So would y'all say, like, obviously, James, you gave him step 1 of take it apart, everything you can, deep clean, sanitize, hand scrub, inspect the actual interior of the keg, which is going to be a little difficult to really see everything, but get the light in there and really look around. If
you know what, another thing I didn't even think about, and Rick Thiner, the guy that does our sanitizer
from Logic, yeah,
I had the same thing happen, and I thought it could possibly been the keg, and it was actually the sanitizer I was using didn't work with high alkaline well water. And so it just wasn't doing it. It wasn't sanitizing. So it could be something like that. It may have nothing to do with the keg.
We don't name names, but was it something about foam and not fearing it?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We've heard that before about that, where it doesn't do
that particular brand does not work well in hard water.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not knocking them for it. I'm just saying that was one of the reasons Logic came out with their sand step, was because of the demand. Do you remember when
Jonathan talked about it too with National Chemical with what's the one, the iodophor they use?
BTF,
what's it called?
BTF iodophor.
BTF, that it works well in hard water too.
It does, and it kills everything. It's wonderful. You just don't like the stain.
Yeah.
Like I like BTF iodophor because it's been working. As soon as
that's what I like about the Star Sand.
Or Sand Step.
I mean, Sand Step.
Name and names.
Sand Step. I like Sand Step because it does. Well, we can name names. We just named BTF.
I know, but I was dogging on the foam one. I mean, I was joking. I was just saying that I don't always name names because I'm a chicken. I'm trying to be cordial. Not that there's no reason not to be cordial. Now I'm just the conspiracy. Now that the foil.
Not that there's anything wrong.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't like it.
Yeah. You just don't like
that's an inside joke from Seinfeld.
Yeah,
I know. I've seen the episode, but no, I don't actually like that sanitizer because I do have very hard water.
Right.
And that's this.
Well, don't you remember the presentation in Minnesota was the first time Rick with Logic showed Sand Step off, and do you remember the crowd he got?
Yeah.
It's crazy
at his demonstration.
It's in everybody's mind.
Yep. I mean, he had a huge crowd.
Well, unfortunately, we've been out of it for a while because we couldn't get they couldn't get bottles to bottle it. But that problem's been solved, and we're getting the sanitizer back in, right?
Right in time for in time for Black Friday.
We may see them tomorrow.
Oh, really? Okay. It's because I have a bottle still, but I only have one bottle. I hoarded some, and I'm down to one bottle, so there's perfect timing. I'm ready to get it back in stock.
Oh, if I'd have thought about it, I would have snuck that bottle in my car and taken it over here.
You can't have enough sanitizer.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's good. I know. So you two, y'all swear by it because it's fantastic stuff. We have a bottle at my folks' place, but my dad prefers the BTF iodophor as well. But
we should bring that bottle back and give it to James.
That's what I'll do. James. I'll re-gift it at Christmas.
Exactly.
I'll put a bow on it for you for Christmas. And I feel bad. Last year, I think Todd was the one who gave me grief because I gave you a blood pressure cuff. He's like, you gave someone a blood pressure cuff. I was like, yeah, because I care about the guy.
I use it all the time. Really.
You're welcome. Because I care about you.
That was a very good, well thought of gift.
Yeah, Todd.
Yeah. I would think maybe that I don't want to emphasize it too much. Like if you took Sand Step and you mixed it twice as strong, that Rick would always. A lot of people say, look, mixing it stronger is not a good idea because of this reason. But maybe in a circumstance like that, you mix it much stronger, let it sit for a long time, and let it try to kill everything in there and see if that makes a difference. I mean, I would say this: if he sent me that keg, I would feel confident enough to put my beer in it and try it. If he wants to do that, we could do a $5 bet, Josh. I will bet you that if I put my beer in there, it'd be fine.
I don't want to bet you. I don't want to bet you at all. I
don't even ask James because he'll never bet me.
No, but first off, you still haven't done I'm going to brew one weekend and then I'm going to boil the next weekend. $5. I know I could do it.
Well, I just don't need that money yet, but I'll need it someday, and I'll do that.
Oh, golly. Yeah, you have a lot of $5 bets out there right now, too, around the election. I'm looking forward. I'm hoping what is it, like $30? It's not a whole lot. But
I will admit, I just looked at statistically and thought to make those bets, but the one about the time frame was probably a bad bet at this point. I conceded yesterday to two people that I was going to have to pay them that bet.
Yeah.
If the election would definitely be decided beyond a shadow of a doubt by Friday, I think I'm screwed on that.
I think you are screwed on that as well, because that Friday is tomorrow.
And I don't even, it had nothing to do with who wins the election. It was just It was just timing and what would happen. And I thought it would be more clear. And I thought everybody was being a little kind of going over the top on how bad it was going to be. And boy, they weren't. It turned out to be pretty bad.
It's a bunch of goofballs, man. Bunch of goofballs. But anyways, thank you so much, Charles, for also submitting the question. Fellas, that does it for this week. I appreciate y'all's time, Todd, for housing me up to let me drink all your beer.
God, he's been here. I want you to know he's going to be here a week before this is all over.
Oh, yeah.
And I did not think that through when I agreed to that.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Oh, and his wife left us.
Yeah. Do you blame her?
She took off, dude.
Do you blame her? So, she's like, hell no, I am out of here.
Normally when I come up here, I'm like the first night I was here, she treated me to stuffed pork chops and homegrown asparagus and green beans and sauteed and mushroom gravy and this and that. And last night, Todd made me DiGiorno.
Yeah, frozen pizza.
Todd made me DiGiorno.
Oh, to be fair, I was going to make him we lost James. We were good.
I
was going to make you a pizza from scratch, and my wife threw the dough away that I had in the freezer. So that's the reason we ended up doing
Sure thing. Anyways, well, we already lost James.
Well, we enjoyed having him though while he was here.
Okay. So Mr. Burns, I appreciate your time, my friend, and we'll do this again next
All
week.
Right.
Oh, look, he's coming back to say bye. Let me go ahead and let him say bye. Oh, hey there, James.
I don't know what happened.
Well, we already said bye. We were just going to let you say bye before we left.
Yeah.
Bye.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show's sponsor, homebrewsupply.com, for supporting us and the homebrewing community. Go to homebrewsupply.com right now. Use our promo code HHH and you'll get 5% off your order. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.
This program is made possible by the checkbook of Mr. Todd Burns and by contributions to our newly launched Patreon by viewers like you. Visit patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and join our community. Thank you.